I know you're a big Cardinals fan. You got to be happy with them clinching the NL Central last night.
Oh, absolutely. I hope we've got enough to make a run in the playoffs. But yeah, first time they won the division since I think 19. So and I was watching at the house last night when they won the game.
Hopefully they'll keep it going. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can be with you and root for them. I'm a big Braves fan.
But I told my wife last night I might get to see them in the playoffs. It's a little too far right now to go to St. Louis, but if they end up playing the Braves, I might venture over to Braves Stadium to watch them.
So, Coach, let's go back. You grew up in Kentucky. Was it always your dream to see your jersey hanging in the rafters in Rupp Arena? Where did that love for basketball come from?
I just since I was an early age, my dad, always had me at the gym or the baseball park working out, and just loved it. Loved to compete, and I love the camaraderie that you get with your teammates, and didn't really like the individual sports, golf, tennis. They just I thought it always for me winning championships and being able to share those with your teammates was pretty special.
There's another love that you have I wanted to ask you about. I remember when I was a manager, you'd be walking up and down the court with a Diet Coke. Where'd your love for Diet Coke come from?
Well, it used to be Dr. Pepper's, and I was starting to gain a little weight. My wife challenged me. That said I couldn't start drinking diet, and so we had a little side bet that could happen, and eventually started liking Diet Coke, or I probably should say loving Diet Coke. I seem to have one at all times, and I have one right now as we speak. But yeah, it's probably my favorite drink.
So, Coach, you leave your hometown of Bremen, Kentucky, and a lot of people may not know that you actually spent your freshman year at Texas playing for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I played my first 2 years there. Was very fortunate. We were had some great teammates, a coach that I loved. My sophomore year, our teammates, we still stay in contact, talk about it all the time. We were 14-0 and ranked fifth in the country, and we were playing at Baylor, and my roommate goes down with a knee injury. Coach wasn't at the game. His brother was dying to take us. We lose the game, go 14-1, and proceed to end up 16-11. My roommate was done for the year, and they fired coach at the end of the year. It changed a lot of lives that night, but we felt like we had a chance that year to go to a Final Four. We'd beat Houston by 25 at Houston, but at the end of that season, after they fired coach, I think 7 of us left. Our starting center was a number 5 pick in the draft, and just decided at that point to go back home and play at Kentucky Wesleyan, which was about 20 minutes from my home.
And speaking of Kentucky Wesleyan, you were there from 1983 to 2005. What was that 22 years like for you?
It was great. I took, played 2 years there. We played in 2 Final Fours, and then left for a year. After my senior year, our head coach that I played for took the VCU job. I went with him as a grad assistant for a year, and just really wanted to go back home again. And went back as an assistant coach, and was an assistant coach for, I'm not even sure how many years at this point, 10 or 11, and the head coach for 10 or 11. So again, was close to my family. My mom, dad could be at all the games. Loved that, and probably would still be there today. They made a change in president, and I thought they were de-emphasizing basketball, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. And so decided to move along.
You have a guy that followed you from Kentucky Wesleyan to JSU, who was in my opinion, one of my favorite coaches I had while I was at JSU, Coach Tommy Wade. What impact has he had on your basketball career?
He's been great. He's a good friend. When I left Kentucky Wesleyan, I took him with me to Oklahoma City. And then when I got this job, hired him back. So he's a guy that, he's loyal to, he works hard. He's a relationship guy. He does a good job in recruiting, but, just someone that you can always trust. He's going to have your back.
Rumor has it that while you were in the D2 level, you were once rivals with a pretty well-known coach who's coaching at Auburn right now. Is that true?
We had some battles. We were in the same conference. And I'll just say that we played in 6 consecutive national championship games when I was at Kentucky Wesleyan. And I say this all the time. He had an unbelievable program at Southern Indiana. They just couldn't get past us. If it was like Division I, where teams were shipped out, but in Division II, it's regional. So we were going to face them in the regionals every year. But if it would have been like Division I, I think we could have met in some national championship games. But I think we were like 18-4, 18-5 against Southern Indiana. They were all sellouts. If we played at their place as a sellout, played our place, you're going to put 5,000, and we would meet in a conference championship game. I know we would put 10,000 in there for those games. So it was good for the area. There was only about 30 or 40 miles that separated the two schools. So we created something, I think, that interests the fans.
As you touched on earlier, you made a quick pit stop in Oklahoma City. What went into that decision to finally leave Kentucky Wesleyan?
Again, I thought, the change in presidents and the de-emphasis to basketball, they were going to cut scholarships. And I had just turned down the Oklahoma City job, and then they called me back and asked me to just come back out and look at it one more time, and they would try to make it right. My former coach at the University of Texas, the arena at Oklahoma City is named after him. It's Abe Lemon's Arena. His wife, Betty, was still living in Oklahoma City, and she had a big influence on me to come back and look at it one more time. And when I did, I looked at the tradition they had in the past, and they had lost some of that. And they wanted to get back and compete for championships. And fortunately, we were able to do that. We were there 3 years, won 2 championships, and got beat on the last second shot in a national championship game the other year.
Elaborate on that last second shot.
Tough one. We're at the free throw line up 2. My best free throw shooter on the line. He misses with about 4 seconds to go in the game. The kid dribbles about 1 dribble past midcourt and lets it fly for a 3 at the buzzer. I can remember being at dinner that night after the game. My wife, our president, his wife, our athletics director, and I just told him, look, you need to look for another coach. I don't think I want to do this anymore. My athletics director, my wife, probably convinced me that you don't need to make this decision. I take a couple of weeks, and so I did. And after a couple of weeks, it started to wear off in terms of, let's go back and try to do this and finish it. And fortunately, we were able to do that the following year.
So was that the worst loss that you've ever had?
I've had a lot of them. I've had a lot of wins. The losses seem to stick with you longer, but that one I'll never forget. I felt like we had it right there. And that was our first year at Oklahoma City. We had some kids that had not experienced that type of success, and all of a sudden we'd put it right there in front of them. And I thought it was ours for the taking, and it just slipped away from us.
So you end up leaving Oklahoma City after 3 years, and you go to Western Kentucky, where you're actually an assistant your first couple of years. Was there an adjustment there going from these smaller schools to the D1 level?
Not really. I'd had some opportunities over the years to take Division I jobs, and I'll go back to what we talked about earlier. I don't think I would have ever left Kentucky Wesleyan. I had several opportunities to leave prior to going to Oklahoma City. And then when I left Oklahoma City, I had the option of taking a Division I head coaching job or going back home as an assistant. And my wife and I talked about it, and it just felt like it was right. It was the right time to go back home. Her mom was living in Bowling Green, where Western Kentucky is located. My mom and dad are 30 minutes away, so it's time to go home. And so that's what we did. And again, it was somewhat of an adjustment, but at the same time, it wasn't. Your role has changed. You're a suggestion maker instead of a decision maker. But at the same time, we're all on the same team as, trying to win championships and help kids get better.
So you've been at JSU since 2016, and you've had tons of success. You won a conference championship, OVC championship your first year. You guys had a really good year last year. But you've also played against some really good players like John Morant and Donovan Mitchell. What goes into game planning when you're playing a team who has a guy who's a, potential NBA star?
Well, I mean, each game's the preparation's the same. You don't want to overhype those guys in terms of, if you go back and look, Donovan Mitchell, for example, played Louisville in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I thought we did a great job on him. I think he had like 7 points against us. But it was the other guys' second shots and third shots that ended up eventually beating us. So again, our game plans and how we prepare are no different. We open up with Shorter on November 7th. It's not going to be any different for them than it is our next opponent. And I think just being consistent with that is good for your kids. You don't want to overhype one particular game and then have a letdown for the next game.
So what are your expectations for the Gamecocks this season? I know pretty much the only player that I know that's still there from when I was there was Zelly. So shout out to Zelly. But what are your expectations for the Gamecocks this year? Like you said, I know you guys open up with Shorter. You guys, you going to have a big year?
Well, we think so. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of turnover from last year's roster. But I think we did a good job in terms of replacing guys with enough talent. I don't think that's going to be the issue. It's going to be, obviously winning. It's a lot more than talent. It's going to be about chemistry, how well the guys play together. I think we have some depth. So I think we've got a chance, but at the same time, there's a lot of good teams here in the ASUN this season. We'll see how it goes.
He's a legendary coach. He's a lover of Diet Coke. He used to haunt Bruce Pearl's nightmares. Coach Harper, thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Appreciate it.